Hey there, TikTok fam. So I'm back to share with you part 8 of my series, Black and Female in Corporate America. So if you're new here, I've been sharing just stories about my own experiences of being a Black woman in predominantly white spaces in corporate America. So I'm going to pick up where I left off on the last video, where I started out with Black women are expected to be silent fixers. Oftentimes in the workplace, Black women are hired to come in and clean up a mess, or we get dumped on. We're not trained the way that our white counterparts are, and we just have to figure it out and make do with our resources. It's very much a sink or swim mentality. So another story that I have about this very thing is one of my first jobs as a paralegal. I was working in this department. There was, we had an office admin who was also a paralegal certified as well, and then myself and another paralegal. And this other paralegal, she'd been there for, a significant amount of time, I think about 8 years before I was hired. And she was getting ready to leave. She'd met someone and they were going to move to another state. But during her time there, she wasn't happy with her job, and she made people around her miserable, specifically myself and the other paralegal who was also in an admin role. And as she was preparing to leave, well, let me back up just to give more context to her backstory. She had initially wanted to be a nurse, and she married somebody who had aspirations of being a musician. That's what brought them to Nashville, Tennessee. The whole music thing didn't work out. Their relationship didn't work out. But in her trying to help and support him, she quit. She dropped out of nursing school and decided to go to paralegal school. I don't know why, but she did. And, it was clear she was miserable. She just hated her job. And she would take a lot of things out on myself and the other admin paralegal. So she's getting ready to leave, and she was one of those employees where if somebody needed something, she could get it to them, but everything was an organized mess. If she was out of the office, you couldn't find anything. And she did it on purpose because she wanted to be needed. She was very territorial about anything. If somebody was asked to do something while she was out, she would throw a fit. For example, she'd been out one day, and our admin paralegal, she did a filing for one of the attorneys and put everything in its proper folder. When she came back to work the next day, she was so upset that she'd been asked to do it. She deleted everything that this, previous paralegal had done, rescanned and everything, and saved it all herself just because somebody else had done it. That's what we were dealing with. So we knew that she was not organized. Things were going to be a hot mess. So we kept asking her, is there anything that we can help you with? Because most people, when they're leaving a job, unless it's just a super, super toxic environment, you're going to draft up a little memo, let people know what work you're leaving, what tasks are unfinished. If there's other people there that can kind of start picking things up, they can do that too, just so the transition can be as smooth as possible. And she just kept saying, oh no, I've got it covered. I can do everything. So, her very last day at the office rolls around. We're still asking if we can help her, and she's going, oh no, I've got it. The next day, myself and the other admin paralegal come in, and she had put boxes and papers and everything around both of our desks. The other paralegal had cleaned out our file room because at this point we had moved into a new building, and she had organized the boxes. She had labels for everything. This paralegal who had left was so angry and snarky that she had taken all of the stuff out of her desk and cleaned up, and she put it in front of she stacked things so that you could barely open the door to the file room. And so now both of us are having to figure out, what this mess is. There was one female attorney that was still there in the department, and she and another male attorney both had this little routine. They'd come in the office about 9. They would chat until lunchtime. She would go and walk for about 2 hours, and then she would come back, have her lunch. He'd have his lunch. They'd chit-chat some more and send out a few emails, and that was it. That was pretty much all they did. And when this paralegal left, she kept trying to take over and start ordering us around, and we had already been, doing the work, so we knew what we were doing. We didn't need her trying to come in and act like she needed to be boss now, but she tried to make it look like she was doing all of the work, and she was not. And so it turned into the undermining, and everything came to a head, and we had this falling out where, I'm basically telling her, stop undermining me, stop trying to tell me how to do a job that I've been partially doing for 4.5 years, because I ended up stepping into this paralegal's previous role. And That led to her doing the crocodile tears, and she ended up going into the male attorney's office and shutting the door, and she stayed in there the rest of the afternoon pouting. Our boss overhears our exchange, and I go to my office. I knew something was going to happen, and sure enough, he comes by there, and he immediately just starts mansplaining to me about my job instead of just asking me what was wrong. And so at this point, I had already been looking, planning my exit. I was done. And so I just cut him off, and I said, that's not the problem. And, I'm telling him, you don't need to mansplain to me how to do my job. That's not the issue. The issue is I'm being undermined, and this previous paralegal left a mess, and nobody has acknowledged any of the work that I've done, and I'm over it. And so, of course, I ended up leaving there and fortunately stepping into a different opportunity. But just, to go back to say, a lot of times as Black women, when we're in these spaces, we are just supposed to be these silent fixers. Just clean up the mess, don't do anything, hand it over, and then after everything is done and it's nice, neat, and tidy, everybody else will step in and take it over because now the grunt work's been done.